Hello, my name is Angad Kalon, and this is my midterm presentation for Comp 420, which is Computers in Society. And the topic I chose was related to cybersecurity. And with cybersecurity, inside cybersecurity, I chose the Equifax breach that happened in 2017. And so this is my essay, but I'm just going to go over some main points in this video presentation. So the Equifax breach it was a, one of is said to be one of the largest personal information data breaches in history. Basically, in this data breach, millions of people in the United States and a couple thousand people in Canada and millions of people in the UK lost their personal information that included driver license number, social insurance numbers, names, date of births, and so on. And the thing that led to this breach or attack happened based on my research that I talk about in this essay is that there's many ethical and security issues that combined that led to this massive data breach where customers lost a lot of important personal data. And so there's many steps that companies like Equifax could take to ensure like many steps towards security and ethics that they can take to ensure like this type of a breach does not happen in the future. So I'll just go over this little timeline I have over here to exactly get what happened during that time. So if we start in December 2016, like the first thing in this timeline, we can see that by Motherboard, which is part of a Vice, which is a news organization, they found insecure systems in Equifax, and Equifax did not respond to this or do anything. It was just something found by Motherboard. And then the real breach, you could say timeline starts on March the 6th in 2017 when Apache Struts, which is a software company, announces a vulnerability and releases a patch on the same day. On the next day, we can see here March 7th, 2017, the US Department of Home Security alerts Equifax about this potential vulnerability and alerts them to repair it with the patch as quick as possible. A few days later, so approximately 2 days later, on March 9th, Equifax's internal organization emails the IT department in Equifax to apply the patch within 48 hours. Now, the IT department did apply this patch, but it, for some reason, did not apply to all of the um, devices. On May the 13th, 2017, the attackers exploited that vulnerability and entered the Equifax network. And then from May 13th to July 29th, the attackers had full access to most of the Equifax network, and they were able to gather as much information as they can. And then on July 29th, 2017, Equifax finally discovers a breach due to some suspicious activity in their network, and they take note of that. And then the next day, they finally take down the web application that had the vulnerability in it. A few days later, on August the 2nd, Equifax finally hires a cybersecurity firm to investigate this breach. And only a month later is when the true extent of the breach is revealed to the public, where they shared about all the data that was lost. So that was basically what happened, and this was a hack. This was an attack of a big magnitude, where we could see here 143 million people just in the United States lost their personal information, plus another 15ish million in the UK, and plus 19,000 Canadians as well. So this was an attack of a big level, and the stuff that led to this attack was a combination of security and ethical issues. So I'll talk about the security quickly. The security was that they didn't have the proper infrastructure, cybersecurity infrastructure in place to prevent this type of a thing happening. But there's also a lot of ethical issue behind this attack. Um, we can see that they didn't um, stay true to their promise with the consumer or customer with protection of their data because they did not invest in or prioritize investing in cybersecurity. And the response by the information technology department, where they did not apply that patch to every device and they did a really delayed reaction, is loss of negligence um, performed by the IT department, and they really underestimated the need of quick action. So another large ethical issue that was created by Equifax that led to this was the that did not lead to it, but it was an ethical issue of this breach was a lack of transparency and disclosure. So from if we go back to the timeline, we can see that the attack they found about the attack on August 2nd, but they didn't reveal it to the public until almost more than a month later. So there was a lot of lack of transparency and not enough communication or disclosure with the consumer, which is a really big um, ethical issue where you need to have that transparent communication with your consumers or customers about where they're in, because at the end of the day that data is theirs. It's the company can use it, but it's their information, so they should have the access to what's happening with their information and data. And there's also some serious concerns raised with them not complying with regulations and disregarding established standards that protect consumer rights. And a big case that fell on them was about corruption because um, the day they found about the breach, the executives especially sold millions of dollars worth of shares before publicly disclosing the breach the next day. So they took advantage of that in between time of disclosing the breach and when the breach happened, and they sold all their shares. So that's a really big ethical issue. There is you're prioritizing your profits more than you prioritize your commitment to your consumers or customers. And so here we can see like why did they sell that their shares before it was going to drop eventually, because in September of 2017 when this news got out, the stock or share price dropped a lot. um, so it's really important that we understand cases like this Equifax breach so we can understand really like how companies like this magnitude should really work ethically and use their business ethics to work properly. And so we can talk about some things about improvement. So we have the CIA, where we have confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And there's many little um, like actions that this type of companies can take. So like one of them is the for security aspect is the data minimization. So what this does is that right in the Equifax we had a really big centralized area with so much data that an enormous breach could happen easily. So we need to have data minimization where we only keep the essential information and not unnecessary information. And what that does is it helps the customer's privacy, which is helping the ethical aspect, and it's also helping with data storage, which is going to help the customer company's costs eventually too. And then another way, important action that we need that needs to be or could be taken was stricter access control. So right as we can see in the 2016 report done by Motherboard, they could easily just access the employee portal. So it's important for companies like this to limit the number of people with entry that can enter the critical personal private data area, and that can prevent the danger of unauthorized access. And a really ethical issue that they should have um, worked on is that transparent communication. So that transparent communication can really help rebuild that trust. Even if they had a breach, if they had kept that transparent communication, the consumer customers could have had still had more trust in the company, but they really hid some things around for their personal benefit. And so also in this essay I talk about where you need to have those training plans for employees to teach them about this ethical concepts and business ethics. Like the IT department, they either chose to delay that patch, or I don't we it's not really clear what why that delay happened, but either they didn't know or either they did it do on purpose. And but either way they should have that training beforehand. And the same thing with the company, like there should be a company wide plan on what happens when we have a breach that happens, what should we do following that breach. And the same thing for consumers. So what happened in this attack is that the governments provided the consumers with information on what to do now, but the company provided basically no information except for the settlement on what they can do to protect their data. And so that's a really important part of ethical, like ethics, because the it's the duty of the company to ensure that they're keeping their consumers or customer data safe, and keeping it safe is notifying them if it's been lost or breached, been lost in a data breach or sold, and then providing them with ways or solutions on what they can do now. And so basically, this is the Equifax attack, and there's a lot of big lessons that we can learn from this attack related to ethical and security standards that lead to data breaches. And so it's really important for companies to understand and follow business ethics and ensure that they're upholding ethical practices, and this will help prevent events like this to not happen. Even if a company has a good security but they're not following ethical practices, then that company is bound to face issues similar to of this magnitude. And so yes, this is my presentation for midterm. Thank you so much.